Yo, what's going on? Welcome to another episode of Real Conversations Podcast, presented to you by Real Conversations Podcast Network. Today we got a very special guest coming all the way from Ontario, Canada. So this will be our first guest from out the country, from out the states. So this is big for us, you know. He got a lot to talk about from his book Behind the Doors, from all the ins and outs of the foster care system. He has worked and been involved in the foster care system since 1996. We're going to talk about all that. We're going to talk about his book, the making of the book, what made him want to make the book, how did he start his route in social work as a social worker. And we're going to really take a deep dive to the foster care system from the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I wanted my audience just to, broaden their horizons and just get other people's perspectives and other people's life stories. So coming all the way from Canada, my good friend Frank. Give him a round of applause, y'all. Let's go.
Hey everyone, how's everybody doing?
How you doing? How you doing, man?
I'm doing great, no complaints on this end. It's getting a little bit chilly, but it's good.
Okay, okay. So
Yeah, thanks for having me.
my viewers, they probably unfamiliar with you, so we're gonna start all the way from the beginning and talk about your upbringing in Ontario, Canada, and how was it, and what things you did as a child, and how was your household coming up.
Yeah, it sounds great. So I grew up in downtown Toronto. Um, Grew up back in the late '80s to immigrant parents. For us, it was about working on the streets and hustling. That's how I grew up. Right, wasn't really educated. Ran the street with my friends, got involved with gangs, started to understand the culture. It wasn't until wow, 1991, one of my friends got killed by a neo-Nazi skinhead in downtown Toronto, and that sort of got my dad and my mom the packing me up and moving me to the urban settings of Richmond Hill, where I spent the remaining of my time from 1991 right through. High school dropout, um, went back to school. Actually graduated from law enforcement later on in my life. Um, from there, I went to graduate from law enforcement. Then from there, went to start taking some social work courses and ended up in the system.
Okay, okay. Before you go any further, what was your thoughts like? Why did you even go into that path of becoming a social worker?
You know what? I did investigation work for some time, and but it was just something I fell into later on in my life, where I wanted to help individuals, and I actually was hired on working with deaf blind kids. I remember taking this kid Steven out on rollerblades, giving him a quality of life, trying something different, right? And taking those chances, but they're all calculated chances and risks, right? And seeing the smile on this individual's face made me realize that there are so many barriers out there, and because of these barriers, I wanted to have fun and enjoy and have these individuals have a different perspective than your typical individuals that were following the rules and not giving individuals the quality of life that they needed, or being able to try something new. So I helped out a friend, worked there for a while. Then because of that incident, I was let go. And it's always about risk factors and liabilities, and because of that, I found myself with a different path, where I felt that the system wasn't ever going to change.
Okay, so you saying You became a social worker to change the system. That's what you're saying.
Pretty much, right? I wanted to see the quality of care. I wanted to see there's when we look at when we look at the system, it's all about regulations and legislations, whether it be out in the U.S. or whether it be here in Canada. It's not focused on individuals. It's focused on, you know, the legislation. It's focused on regulations. It's focused on, pushing that pen and paper and making sure that everything is documented for, the government officials that are doing the inspections. So you tend to see a lot of bureaucracy, and people not being able to do what they really want to do, right, and give individuals the quality of life that they want or need.
Okay, okay, okay. So I assume you're a father, right? You have your own children.
Yeah, I got two of my kids. My daughter is in university. She's there with a wrestling scholarship, and my son's also on his way to university next year.
Okay, okay, that's great. I wanted to ask you that just about to start the questioning about, how did you become involved in the foster care system and how did you become a foster parent?
So back in 2002, I ended up getting a job working at a youth detention center. In spirit, growing up on the streets, I was always about being an entrepreneur. I saw my dad being an entrepreneur, and I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I wanted to be able to work for myself. And I was working at the jail, youth detention center. I loved it, but I saw this man that used to always come in. He's bright. He was smiling. Always worked night shifts. Never had the opportunity to speak with him, and it wasn't until one day I was outside from the detention center, just hanging about, and I was hearing the rumors around the detention centers about people starting to work with them and fostering, and had the sense of independence and being able to get paid well while working with kids. So I went home, and my wife, today, back then my girlfriend, I told her about the idea, and she was, she's part of the has been part of the system, understands the system as a developmental service worker, so she was on board. So we ended up following those footsteps. I continued to work at the detention center while I settled into to opening up my first foster home through this company, and started working as a foster parent, my wife and I.
All right. So did you becoming a foster parent, did it affect your home life with your wife and your kids? Did it take away time from them, from you being a father and a husband?
Remarkably, prior to having kids, my kids grew up in the lifestyle of fostering. They've met a lot of my previous foster kids. My kids were very young. They weren't born back then when I first initially started. It took a lot. It took a lot. My wife and I were planning to get married in May, and we were basically told that if we went through with our marriage, we would be terminated. So we were working with four high risk youths that were sexual offenders, and that was our boss, right? The boss that got me involved into fostering, and all of a sudden we weren't able to go out and celebrate our own day of marriage and having family and friends because um, you know, we we had an obligation. So it quickly turned very weird when we looked at the system, and um, you know, soon enough, the system became, and anybody that fosters will quickly notice that your home becomes an institution. You're playing with rules, regulations, and you're working with high risk kids, kids that social workers provide different perspectives depending who's working with those kids.
Mhm.
So I quickly realized that I left a detention center where I had supports and I had other people that I could count on, to a system that I was at home with my wife, and all of a sudden I was working by myself in an institution-based type model, which was really interesting, right? Because you were held accountable for everything.
Right, right. So, okay. So, what you talking about accountability and your home becoming an institution? Can you just tell the people that have no idea about becoming a foster parent or being involved in the foster care system, what are some of the protocols for the parents and for the workers around the foster children? Like, what are some of the background checks and like how far does it go to make sure they're in good hands?
So the foster care system here in Ontario, and I'm sure it's the same out in the U.S. You go through besides the training, the home studies. The home study is a very detailed background information about who you are as an individual, from education to the way you were raised, to your spouse or to your significant other, the way they were raised. So it's this huge composite of background information about yourself. You go through these training processes, you go through police checks, medical checks, prior to having a kid enter your home. So that's normally the process here. It usually takes a few months prior to you even receiving your first kid.
All right, okay.
Yeah.
All right. So with that being said, what would be your take on, like we talked about earlier when we talked on the phone, what would be your take on foster parents or foster care workers that get accused of certain things for sexual assault, physical assault? Would you just say that they're a bad person out the bunch, or how would you go about that?
And you know what, you posed a great question here. What a lot of people don't understand is um, just having a huge background knowledge of the system. There is no real what I would say is an arm's length type of investigation that we would normally see with police officers. Third parties actually look into something. You got, CPS or child protection coming down here and conducting that investigation. You really don't have supports, and the supports that you do have are usually very internal supports from your supervisor, who um, will tend to work with the agencies, because the agencies, their CSs, are the ones that are providing the funding to these foster care homes. So it's in their best interest to work with those agencies, right, and not really support the foster parents. So it's a very interesting system with a very power and control type of system, and this is one of the systems that continues to be very oppressive.
So what I just got from what you just said is pretty much it's a money political type of thing going on.
Pretty much, here's sort of an example to help yourself and the viewers. I owned an agency from 2012 right through until about 2022. And although that any of my foster parents would know that I would support them in any shape, what we see is my previous agencies where I worked at, if there was an allegation made, um, I would be left on my own accord to sort of defend myself. Um, so because it's not in my director's best interest to go against an agency that is bringing kids in where there's a funding formula happening. So there's really no external mechanisms to protect or safeguard anybody.
Okay, that sound like a harsh reality.
It is, and anybody that's in the U.S. or Canada that's ever had an investigation would be able to articulate, the process and how they've gone through it and they've been left on their own accord to sort of defend themselves.
Right. So, with us speaking about investigations and protocols, things like that, to your best knowledge or to, the best possible way we can discuss this without getting, too touchy or too sensitive on this topic without, causing any harm to anyone involved. Could you talk about what we talked about over the phone, that they tried to actually convict you over, I guess, a foster child murder or something like that? I don't want to misword it, so I'm gonna let you just really speak on it.
Yeah. So wow. 4 years ago, it's my whole world got rocked, and when I say it got rocked, we ran an agency that was pro children. We wanted to help to be different, and we have a day called Family Day out here, where it's meant for us to spend time with our family. And during that time, I guess there was an incident through one of our supervisors where he had called the police on a foster kid because he had broken into a home, broke into the foster parent's bedroom. Now, normally we would have mechanisms up to protect from, medications would be get double locked or triple locked, anything that's sharp that could be used as a weapon. We would have those all locked up. I guess he went through to getting arrested. The foster parent didn't want him to return back to the home.
Mhm.
So steps were put into place for to have this individual not return. Um, and later on, I started to learn quite a bit because you go through the legal battles and you start to getting a lot of information and disclosure. And I started to read some of this disclosure of how the police force didn't want and made every steps to have this individual not return to that home, and then the society or the on-call person for the society couldn't find an alternative placement for this individual, and because of that, they weren't able to find an alternative placement. I guess he was returned back to the house early morning hours. He was actually, in fact, transported by police. Um, so upon his return, I guess, and I'm only to speculate that he stayed up, uh, coming up with a plan, and he ended up murdering another child, another youth, one of his peers, because he felt that this individual ratted him out of breaking into the foster parent's bedroom. Um,
Dang.
so,
How old was this kid?
wow. He must have been during that time, 2019, 15 years of age.
Damn.
Yeah, yeah. So, and the sad thing about this whole thing is that uh, we continuously see it that the societies never take responsibility or accountability, right?
Right.
And we sort of look at it as a shift to others that are in the system. If the government is not taking responsibility or the staff don't take responsibility, how do the kids in care take responsibility or are held accountable? And
Right.
that's something that's bothered me for a very, very long time. I mean, my life will go on, and doing things that I love to do, and I think everything happens for a reason. Um, but there was a lot of people that were affected, and because of poor choices were made. Um, you know, I, I could take responsibility to a certain part where maybe, if we didn't take this individual into our homes, this would never have happened. Or, so there's so many things that play with my head on a regular basis that, it's life changing, always be life changing. And more than anything is I don't want to see this continue on to other families, or other people that take in, children, youth, and then, they find themselves in a scenario, of, some child being murdered, or, suicide. There's so many variables that, I think when we're provided information, this information is inaccurate, or
Right.
societies will um, try to place an individual, and when they're trying to place an individual, they provide you information that is totally inaccurate.
Right. So when this situation happened, did this cause you to like resign or step away from the foster care system?
So when this occurred, because I was licensed, um, I was licensed, through the ministry to provide child care, or care to youth, children and youth, from child protection. Um, we fought for it for 4 years. We fought, the ministry out here, or the government officials were really, really, targeting, us, in the sense that, they didn't come back and say, hey, you know what, you had a poor quality of care. What they came back and they started to review administrative files, look at the administrative files, and checking everything out. So anything that they wanted to look for or find, they would have found it. It's no different than you. It's no different you, going in and you auditing your files, and then all of a sudden you're picking everything off that doesn't meet legislation requirements. Although, every year we've been licensed and paperwork has been reviewed, and every year we would have, a license, a full license with no conditions on there. So, um, you quickly start to realize that the system, doesn't favor anybody, and you quickly, start to realize that there was no way of me defending myself, no matter what. A lot of my good friends have turned their backs on me. A lot of, people that I went to school with, or turned their backs on me because of, although the system is such a broad, a huge system, it's a very small system. You Google my name and my name comes up, and it'll tell you exactly what happened. And Fifth Estate, put my name through the ringer, with a lot of speculation, with limited information. They never got my side of the story, or a story that I would be able to share. And Bob McCunin, from Fifth Estate, although that, I sent them emails afterwards and say, hey, you know what, let's sit down, let's have a chat. What you've wrote was very contradicting, or what you wrote was very biased. It wasn't objective. That never happened. So today, I'm now sitting here, and I'm advocating, for child legislation changes, regulation changes, and putting, an eye opener to a lot of foster parents that, do a remarkable job, work with tough kids, and a lot of times are put in predicaments that they shouldn't be put in, and it could be very dangerous.
All right, all right. I got one more question on that situation. Do you feel like you was targeted or discriminated, like since it happened?
Um, I'm gonna say no. I wasn't targeted or discriminated. I think it was, when you're dealing with government, they have to cover their own asses, and that's what the steps that they've done. is to cover their own ass, right? I'm not sure about child protection out in the United States, but here, they're funded by the government. Although that they have a non-for-profit status, they are funded by the government. So it is technically a body of the government here. So based on that, they had to cover their own asses to show, hey, you know what? We've gone ahead. We've shut down the agency. They're taking responsibility for everything that occurred, which is not accurate.
Okay. We can move along. I know that's a tough question for you. I don't want to go any further. Right now, we're just gonna speak on your book, Behind the Doors. I want to know just three main things, like why did you make it? How long did it take to create the book? And what was your overall message or statement you was trying to make, by publishing and getting your story out there?
So the reason why I went back and my wife and I decided to publish this book was to really show people that um, decades later, um, there still is a power controlling the system. We wanted to really explore, and what we did was we took time to speak to the advocate's office out here. Prior to the ombudsman today, we had the advocate's office that was very pro children and youth. There were some changes that were starting to be made, and then we ended up getting a new provincial government, and that quickly changed and went back to the ombudsman's office. Um, so when we wrote the book, we want to tell our story, right, from the beginning of our perspective, through our lens of working as foster parents, and then moving through the ranks and seeing what we saw, and talking to other family members. What was a big component right through to the murder. Um, I think in the 4 or 5 years, um, child protection out here in Ontario has had several incidences of kids killing other kids, suicides, some really poor choices, of youths ending their lives because of one reason or another at a very young age. And these individuals, these kids, all have families out there. So we want to show a perspective that the system still has an impressive mentality through these social workers. Not only does it have an impressive mentality, I think the take of it was the power and control that still continues to be in a system that needs to be reformed and needs to be changed.
Okay. To all the viewers out there, can you tell them where they can purchase the book?
Yeah, so the book, Behind the Doors, can be purchased on Amazon, Outskirts. It could also be purchased on Barnes and Noble. We'll be in the next little while. We will be in some of the chapter stores or Indigo, and that's where you guys can purchase the book. Yeah.
All right. Okay. So, we pretty much touched everything. I appreciate you for coming through. But before we leave, I want you to just give a very encouraging, inspirational message to new foster parents or people that's trying to be involved in the foster care system. What words of encouragement could you give them, and can you just provide them with just a little advice on how to handle things?
Yeah, I would love to. It's life changing. You think going to the gym is life changing, or looking at proper nutrition is life changing. Making those sacrifices, when every time you bring in a child into your home, you're sacrificing your own life, um, and it's life changing. It will always be life changing. You're dealing with, you know, different scenarios. You have to have, um, wear multiple hats. Um, but the changes and the things that you can do is you'll maintain a very long-term relationship. And a lot of my foster kids, I still speak to each and every one of them. And this is going, and majority of them are in their late 20s, early 30s today. So it's great.
Okay, okay. And before we close out, can you just tell people if they want to get in contact with you about anything, how can they contact you on social media?
Yeah, absolutely. Love. So, anybody involved, whether it be in the U.S. or Ontario, involved in child protection investigation that requires some sort of advocacy or supports, they can contact me directly on my cell number, 416-574-0687. My number is always on. I will make every effort to either assist and support you through video conferencing or in person.
All right. There we have it. I appreciate you once again, and you welcome back on the show anytime. And I thank you for just sharing those words, you know, giving us your time and your energy. And I appreciate you. Till next time.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate you. Thank you for everything. We'll talk soon.
All right. There y'all have it, man. Another great interview, another great story. I appreciate him for coming through and sharing all his knowledge and wisdom, and you know, letting y'all know the good, the bad, and the ugly. You know, he didn't hold back at all. So I appreciate him so much. Until next time, Real Conversations Podcast. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Follow us on all audio platforms, Real Conversation Podcast and Network. And we appreciate y'all. It's been a surprise show. It's Monday. I'm tired. I just got off, still had to put in that work. We had a little scheduling issues, but it's all good. Our first out of the country interview. So this is history right here, man. I appreciate y'all. Run them numbers up, like, share, and subscribe. Till next time, we gone.